So the World Food Prize project is fantastic because the students are given a real-world problem, the fact that there is food insecurity in the world, and they are given an opportunity to do research and come up with an idea for how to impact that problem. The detailed directions and criteria are provided by the World Food Prize Foundation in a 15-page document with all the directions for the essay writing and some sample resources as well for students to use. So students have to choose a country that deals with food insecurity in some manner from a vast list of countries, and they have to choose a factor that impacts food insecurity from a list of 15 to 20 different factors. Any student in any place can find something that interests them in the factors. They range from government instability to plant genetics to education and women's rights. So there are factors for everyone. Anyone can find a factor that's interesting. Students do research based on their country and the factor, in-depth research, in order to produce a 5-page essay, at the end of which they describe and explain an idea that they have that would positively impact that country and that factor. Students have ideas ranging from ways to raise money for the food insecurity issues to a new way to use technology to eradicate desert locusts, for example. So after students write an excellent 5-page paper with MLA-style documentation, they take the ideas that they have in their paper and they work that into a 5-minute presentation, verbal presentation, that they will give to a panel of judges who are experts in the field. They, in the state of Indiana, travel to Purdue University, a few students who are chosen to do this to compete, and they present their papers with other students from around the state and have a great academic dialogue around the issue of food insecurity around the world. So typically in the state of Indiana, each high school is allotted 5 possible student spots to attend the Purdue Indiana State World Food Prize Youth Institute.
Some of the things we did were, for instance, a lot of labs. We got to experiment with different chemicals, and that was definitely my favorite part. There were also other things such as talking about how agriculture influences the world economy. It was really interesting learning about how complex the global economy is and how agriculture plays such a vital role in it.
Okay, so after you eat, then it's time to present. And then you're divided into groups of roughly 8 students and you go into separate conference rooms. And you sit at a table, there'll be 3 judges, usually a few teachers, depending on which room you're in, and so the person who's timing you. And then you each pick a number out of a cup, and that dictates who goes in what order. And then in my room, we had to go to the front and stand. This is different for every year in every room, so it would basically depend. But then you present, and then an expert asks you a question, and then the student to your right asks you a question. And then once everybody's gone, if there's time, there's an open discussion where people are free to ask anybody any question they want, and you're required to answer them.
After that, there is a roundtable discussion with everybody who's attending the World Food Prize, and World Food Prize alumni ask the questions and you raise your hand and you have to try to converse with a whole group, which is sometimes a little bit hard, but it was really cool to hear about everyone's different views on different questions, such as they asked if we thought that the world had an overpopulation problem, and there were a lot of different answers about how to fix that or if it is even a problem.
How has the World Food Prize influenced your career choices and education choices?
This event had so much influence on me. I never really considered studying languages to such a high degree, but now that I realize all the places I could go if I was fluent in multiple languages, I want to get at least 3, Japanese, Swahili, and Spanish.
The World Food Prize project, it really opened my eyes to the world. After doing all this research, I realized that there's a lot of ways that we can help these countries who are at a disadvantage compared to the rest of the world, such as America and other developed countries. And it really opened my eyes. And it definitely has influenced my career choice and education choices. I feel that by taking classes that will focus more on worldwide politics, economy, I feel that I will be more help to these countries.
Well, before the World Food Prize, I really wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And the World Food Prize kind of helped me to see all the opportunities that I had at Purdue. So I'd like to look more into the conservation field now because of this project.
I was so amazed with all the people that were there, and I really liked meeting Dr. Gabisa at Jeddah and just talking about him and all that he's done, as well as getting to Skype with Dr. Phil Nelson. And also, I spent most of my time talking to Dr. Keegan Kautsky, and he's just such a great young man. He has so much influence. You can just tell as soon as he walks in the room that he knows what he's talking about.
So after the roundtable discussion, I actually took a moment to talk to the judges who were in the room. Just about everyone there asks you about your career choices, what you have in mind for career, education, colleges, whatever. And I talked to a couple of the judges. One was an animal scientist, and the other one actually gave me his contact info so that I could talk to one of his other professor friends who was actually working in the field that I wrote my essay on. I wrote my essay on pesticides, and I have the contact information. I've sent him an email, and we're in contact. So it's pretty neat that the people who are there can actually implement your idea if you have the passion to move forward with it and press people for it. And the amount of people that I met who were just really awesome people, they knew so much about my idea, and they knew so much about other people's ideas. They had a much larger understanding than what I do of the world because they've traveled it for all of their lives. And someday I think that I might be able to join their ranks and become a world traveler and actually be able to do something about these issues. That's the path I'm on right now. One of the people who I met was Gabisa Jeddah, and I spoke with him about my idea and then other world issues, global awareness about hunger and why things aren't being done about it. And some of his opinions on those matters and how he believes that they can be fixed are just truly phenomenal. We met a lot of really neat people and a lot of people who will stick with us for the rest of our lives.
Definitely, the key is, for me at least, to get people's opinions on your work. I remember, I think I literally sent 20 drafts of my essay to Miss Roth with just comments all over them every single time. And her feedback, as well as other people's feedback from my dad, my mom, fellow students, is really what made my essay very good. So I would just say, get as much feedback as you can. It really helps.
One of the main things I would focus on when writing the essay is not necessarily the history of the country. That's not necessary unless it's definitely relevant to your topic. But I would focus more on using as much of the space that you have available within the word count to talk about your idea. Make sure that it's very clear your idea. Make sure that the benefits that it has to the country are very clear. Make sure that any plans that are currently in place, make sure that your idea talks about how it would directly benefit those plans, how it may be better than those plans. And as far as the presentation goes, definitely make sure that you've practiced a lot. Make sure that you know your idea inside and out, and that you have any loopholes that you possibly can find filled. That way, whenever you give your presentation, if the experts have questions for you, that you're readily available to answer them. Watch your verbal fillers, watch anything that practice with questions. Actually practice your presentation with friends, parents, colleagues. Have them ask you any questions that they can bring up, and that way you're better prepared for any questions that the judges or experts may be asking you.
Advice I'd give for writing essays is you really want to research and know what you're talking about in your essay, because that is very crucial a part to giving your presentation later on at the World Food Prize. And you want to make sure that you can back up your research that you find, and you want to make sure that you have all your details for your plan, how you're going to help these countries written out very specifically.
And what about advice you would give for the presentation?
For presentations, when giving your presentation, you need to practice a lot, because when it comes down to it, you need to know it word by word. I mean, you can have note cards, but you just need to make sure that you watch your word fillers so you just look more professional when giving your presentation.
When looking at choosing a country or a factor, you definitely want to look at a country that you kind of have a personal connection to. Before choosing a country at all, if you don't know what you want to choose, put some research into it and find out what countries interest you. And before choosing a factor, find a country that you know has the factor first off, because you want to make sure that you do some research before choosing the factor, because you don't want a country where water scarcity isn't an issue and then you talk about water scarcity. So make sure that you know it's an issue that affects your country. The larger the issue, I think it's easier to come up with an idea on how to fix it. So definitely put research into it before choosing the factor itself.
Okay, well, make sure to research a few of them at first, and make sure that there are actually hunger issues in the country, because even if it's listed as an option, doesn't mean that hunger is necessarily a very big issue there. And don't just pick a country just because it's called Christmas Island. It's not worth writing a whole paper about something like that. And also make sure that your idea is original and not actually being implemented now, because that would go against the whole point of the paper.
Well, before going to Purdue, I really didn't know anything about Purdue, but afterwards I feel that I know a lot of things about Purdue. So I got to learn a lot about the agricultural department as well as the engineering department, and it was really a great trip.
I think my favorite part about going to Purdue was the AgriCon. We talked about supply and demand, how it affects the world, and how a simple food shortage in one country can make a difference all across the world. Another class that I really enjoyed was the bioengineering class. One of the students there gave us this huge talk about this invention that he made, converts trash into energy, and I thought that was really cool. He had pictures of it, and he was talking about the amount of time it took to make, and kind of the basic logistics of the project. And it was just really amazing that there are people who are capable of doing these things in the world, and that these inventions will soon be out to the world. So